Welcome to the Thornton Review.
The show designed with you in mind. If it's important to you, it's important to us.
Mike Burns has lived in Pensacola, Florida since he was 5 years old when his father was stationed here in the Marines. He's lived on Pensacola Beach for over 30 years and is currently serving as the executive director of the San Rosa Island Authority. He received his bachelor's degree in political science from UWF and his Juris Doctorate from Nova Southeastern University College of Law in 1992. Over the course of his career, Mike has served in multiple legal roles at the local and state level, including working alongside former Governor Charlie Crist as Deputy Attorney General and statewide prosecutor. As an attorney, Mike was involved in the largest multi-district litigation case in the history of the federal court system, resulting in a $6 billion settlement for U.S. service members and contractors who used the 3M Combat Arms earplugs. Mike's talents and experience as a non-conventional executive director for the San Rosa Island Authority are ideal as someone who wants to protect and preserve the growth of Pensacola Beach while also protecting its environment. Hi, I'm Pueschel Schneier, executive producer and manager of the Thornton Review. Thank you for tuning in. Our guest on today's show is Mike Burns, executive director of the San Rosa Island Authority. So Mike, it's really nice to have you on. I've got a ton of questions for you that I'm really curious about. But first off, please introduce yourself.
Well, thanks for having me on the show today, Pueschel. It's my pleasure, and I thank you and Charles for having me here. I'm Mike Burns. I'm the executive director of the Santa Rosa Island Authority, Pensacola Beach. I kind of run the beach. Got appointed by the board back in June of this year. And last year, June 20.
Almost a year.
Yeah, so to be coming
so
up
you're
on a
new.
year. Yeah, I'm new, but I'm old now. Some of the all the glitter's worn off a little bit about the job. But I came to the job back in June. By trade, I was a trial lawyer, and I was a practicing lawyer for many, many years. I started off here in Pensacola at the state attorney's office. I worked at state attorney's office, assistant state attorney, the public defender's office, public defender, and then my good friend Joe Scarborough got elected to Congress, and Joe and I went to Pensacola Catholic High School together, and he was a couple years behind me, but he asked me to join his team when he went to Washington. Joe goes to Washington, Mike went with him, and so
Cool.
I worked with Joe for many, many years. You know him now as the host of Morning Joe on
Absolutely.
MSNBC, and so I chat with him pretty regularly. And then after Joe kept moving along in politics, I got really fortunate. I worked with another good friend of mine, Charlie Crist, who was the Education Commissioner for the state of Florida, then the Attorney General for the state of Florida, and the Governor of the state of Florida. So
Right.
I was Charlie's Deputy Attorney General when he was Attorney General, and I was his Special Assistant Attorney when he was Governor of the state of Florida. So I rolled that into a mass torts law firm practice. I've worked with a firm out of Houston, Texas, and I worked with a firm here in Pensacola just recently on some big cases, the 3M Combat Arms earplug case, which we settled for over $6 billion.
That is incredible. That's incredible.
It
Now
was.
that's a huge accomplishment.
It was a great
Well,
thing.
being Deputy Attorney General is a huge accomplishment, but winning a lawsuit like that as an attorney, that just has to be the icing on the cake for
Well,
any
I tell you, it
attorney.
was really good, and you felt so good in your heart because you knew
Absolutely.
you were doing great things
Yeah.
for the
Because
soldiers.
people's hearing was lost
Totally.
and damaged.
And so it was really rewarding to work for soldiers across the country and help them in that litigation. And after that, the Island Authority job came open, and a couple of my buddies said, "What do you think?" I said, I think I might be able to do that job." And they go, "Really?" And I said, "I don't know." I remember talking to my high school coach, Keith Bell, and he goes, "Mike, I can't believe you beat out almost 40 guys for the job."
Wow.
Never heard anybody beating out 40 guys, but Keith was really encouraging me about applying for the job, and I did. And so I've been in the job just shy of a year now, and we're just working all kinds of good things. And so my wife was very supportive. Amy Burns, Amy's assistant principal at Workman Middle School here in Pensacola.
My son went there in the 6th grade.
Is that right?
Yep.
Well, yeah, he was a Jaguar, the Workman Jaguars. But yeah, so we live out in Gulf Breeze, and we have a great time going back and forth to the beach. And she's a community servant as well, and I just love serving the people of Pensacola Beach and Escambia County. I think this is a very rewarding job, and I'm looking forward to all the great things that we're going to do on the beach in the upcoming years.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad to have you. I think they made the right choice.
Wow, you're too kind. I appreciate that.
So that's a lot of accomplishments, and I appreciate you explaining that. But we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Mike Burns, Executive Director of the Santa Rosa Island Authority. There is no government-funded program that can guide a man's thoughts. Only God can do that. Company can install any type of fence. When you call and mention the Thornton Review, you'll receive a $100 discount on your fence. They also offer military discounts. Vinyl fence, wood fence, aluminum fence, chain link fence. If it has the word fence, Alpha Fence Company can do it. 850-586-8020. 850-586-8020. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to continue our discussion with Mike Burns, Executive Director of the Santa Rosa Island Authority. So Mike, I appreciate your introduction. You gave me a lot of questions just from that I want to go down all these rabbit holes. So you said you beat out 40 guys for the position. So my number one question is, and then you can explain however you want, but how many of those 40 were from out of town and that had never been to Pensacola?
Well, that's a good question. I think almost the whole field was from out of town. There was one other guy that was maybe have worked at the city of Pensacola at some point in his career. He may still work over in Milton right now. And then there was another guy that was from, I want to say Fairhope. So, but the majority of the people, let's say there was 38 of us, I think is how many it was. So the other 36 were from all over the country. You know, I think it may have been 18 different states. And you had other mayors that applied for the job, other county administrators, people that had been elected officials in other counties and states. And so the label that kind of got put on me, I was the unconventional candidate. And because, you know, I was a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I had been involved in
You've
politics.
never been elected before.
Never,
so
hadn't been elected.
So
I was
you're not a politician.
well, you know, I wasn't
you
a
are, but you
politician,
aren't,
but I worked for all these political guys and gals that were in politics for many, many years. And so I was like the guy that carried the clipboard. I, you know, helped call the plays. You know, I wasn't the guy that took the snap or took the shot. But I worked and I learned a lot working with, I learned a lot working with Joe. I learned a lot working with Jim Paul, who was superintendent of schools here in Escambia County. I learned a lot working with Charlie Crist over the many years because there were other good people that we worked alongside of. Worked alongside Jeb Bush. Had a lot of interaction back in the day working with Senator Joe Manchin out of West Virginia. Senator Gillibrand out of West Virginia. Excuse me, not out of West Virginia, out of New York. So I've worked with a lot of politicians on both sides of the equation. I worked with Senator Phil Graham out of Texas back in the day. Senator Bob Doyle out of why am I drawing to that? Kansas. You know, Bob Doyle, great military man. So you know, of course, interacted with President Bush, both Daddy Bush and W. So a lot of interaction with different people throughout the years, and so that gave me a lot of confidence when I was going in up against a field of about 40 people. So I just knew, number one, you always got to make the paper cut. And if you can make the paper cut, that's the
filling
first.
out all the forms,
Right, and fill out
crossing
the
all the
forms.
T's and dotting all the I's perfectly.
Exactly. So that's what you have to make the paper come alive. And so I think
And
that
then
was
interviews and then meet and greets.
Sure.
There's a lot involved, I'm sure.
a lot of that. Then you had to put together a
Just give us
PowerPoint,
okay.
and so, but that
So
kind
it's
of
very involved.
but it played into my hand at the same time. So I knew at some point if I could just make, you gotta. It's like we're in the NCAA basketball tournament right now. You got to survive and advance.
Yeah.
So you got to make the paper cut. After you make the paper cut, you got to make the round of the next round, which was go from 40 or 38 to 18 to 12, 12 to 5, 5 to 1. And so you just break it down. And how do you need to keep advancing? And then once you get to that point, now you got to get the votes. You had to get 5 votes, 6 votes, how many people were on the board, that's what you had to do. So luckily it came out my way, blind squirrel found an acorn, and got all the votes. It was unanimous. And
Well, I think it's important to hire locally because you grew up in
I like
Pensacola.
that idea.
Yeah, no, you grew up in Pensacola, you know the area, you know the people, you know the needs. Somebody of your caliber and your experience, you can see, like you're like standing over it, looking at it and seeing what needs to be done.
Michelle, I think that was really the big advantage for me, and that when I came into the position, I knew that the players and I knew them on the beach. I lived on the beach for almost 35 years, even when I worked for all these other different, I worked with all these different other elected officials. Even in my law practice, that was more of a national law practice, practicing in federal court. But Pensacola was always home. Pensacola Beach was always home. So I think that's what really gave me an advantage is I knew where to go. And if they would have selected somebody,
know what needs to be done on the beach.
Well,
You
know
know
what
how
needs to be
how
done.
it needs to operate.
well, one of the best things is how to listen to people.
Yeah.
And when you live out there for all those years, you've seen things develop, and you see things go in one direction or another. Some things good, some things maybe not so good. But it was such an advantage where somebody else would have
You know the
probably had to been,
issues.
2 or 3 years just getting to know the
Right.
people.
And there are smart learners out there,
Right,
quick
right.
learners, very smart people. I'm sure, like ECUA hired a director from out of town. I think he's
Right.
the best decision they could have made.
Right.
Even though he doesn't know the area, he knows the system because he was doing the same thing where he was. So that's a different thing. You know the issues on the beach, and like for instance the nourishment.
Yeah.
What's going on with the nourishment?
So the beach nourishment is probably the number one issue for me right now, and it's a project that's going to cost about $36 million to fund the entire project. And what that does is we have 8.1 miles of sand on the beach, public beach, and that's from Park East to Park West, where you have the National Park on the Park East side, and you have the National Park on the Park West side. And what you're trying to do is just keep it simple.
That's before Fort Pickens? That's right,
Exactly.
before
Fort Pickens on the one side, which would be the west
Does it
side.
include Fort Pickens, or
Does
is
not
that
in-
federal?
That's federal.
Yeah.
So it doesn't include Fort Pickens. And then on the other side, you have the national park on that side that goes all the way from the Escambia line all the way into Santa Rosa County to Santa Rosa County. So those parts are excluded from the beach renourishment. So you have basically 8 miles.
Okay.
On the if you look at it like an airplane, you have the wings on both sides, and then you have the fuselage, which are where the passengers are, and that is the core area of Pensacola Beach. So you have the right, you have the left, and then where the passengers are. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep a sand fence or a sand wall that goes from the dune line to the waters line 300 feet. And you want that from the dune line to the water 300 feet.
And that's on the Gulf side?
That's on the
or
Gulf side, exactly right.
Okay, what about the sound?
The sound, you don't really get the wave action from the
Right,
sound
of
that you do
course.
from a storm like a hurricane coming. So that's your major protection by putting that sand. The sand
And
acts
it
as
just prevents erosion, beach erosion.
it does, and it protects your infrastructure at the same time. It is infrastructure. The sand is infrastructure, but it also protects your infrastructure, like the ECUA project we just finished on the beach. Florida Power and Light just did a major power hardening on the beach. They spent $28 million making sure that they harden the lines as they go down Via de Luna and down Fort Pickens Road, and then what they call submarine lines that go underneath the intercoastal and hook up, so that they make sure they can keep the power on the beach. And so this beach nourishment, that protects all of that infrastructure, the roads, the homes, the buildings, everything gets protected. And the project costs right at $36 million to fund. Right now we have 26.8 million of the funds. We're going to be going to the Tourist Development Council and to the county commissioners to get the balance, 9.2 million, in the upcoming weeks, and get them to help us fund that additional that shortfall. The Santa Rosa Island Authority has put together $10.1 million, and Charles Thornton has been helpful with that. Jerry Watson, Jeremy Johnson, of course, Elizabeth Timothy, Bruce Childers. And I know I'm going to forget somebody, David Peden with Florida Power and Light. Our board is very helpful, very supportive, stays in close contact with our county commissioner, and that's what's really helpful.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's your relationship with the other government entities? Because I'm sure you have to work with them, alongside them, because they're doing stuff for you on the beach. And so you need funding, you need, the budget, you need the resources, everything that goes into providing electric, water, sewage, everything on the beach.
It all works together.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You have to work together with your county commissioners. You have to work with your state legislatures, and they are very helpful. And they understand, whether it's Michelle Salzman, Alex Andrade, let's say Senator Don Gates, and on and on and on. They are very receptive. I know they
understand what the beach
they
needs.
Understand
also,
what the beach
if
needs.
If they don't, you can explain it to them.
Right, they're right. And like Senator Gates knows that the beach is the economic engine for Escambia County.
And locals.
No doubt about it. And so it helps when you have, we just did a recent survey with the UWF Haas Center, and Nicole Gleason was very helpful. I made sure I thanked Martha Saunders and all that she's done. They were very helpful. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, Pensacola Beach was a 9.2, 9.3 from everybody that scored us out. I mean, that's pretty doggone good to get a 9.2, 9.3. And I told Martha the other day what a great hire she made when she hired Alex Smith from the city of Pensacola. He worked with D.C. Reeves, and now he's going to work with the University of West Florida. And I think that'll be an excellent hire for the university. And just to have those relationships are so important, because you need to work with everybody. We need to partner. One of the things I like to do is I like to partner with the city of Pensacola. I like to partner with the city of Gulf Breeze and Pensacola. We're all connected.
Absolutely.
And if one of us does well, we're all going to do well. You know, Pensacola Beach is so connected to downtown Pensacola. And Ashley Hopper, excellent example of how she has the real economic engine in her district. District 4 has the beach, the airport, and downtown Pensacola.
Right.
That's where the money's
huge.
generated,
Yeah.
in those 3 locations. So
That's like the biggest responsibility of the county, I think.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And so she's been very helpful working alongside of us to work with our other commissioners. Mike Kohler, excellent county commissioner, doing a great job as a chairman. Steve Stroberger, new guy on the block, but wow, what a great job. He's going in there. He's very thoughtful.
What I know of you people, because I know all of y'all, your hearts are in it.
Right.
You're the right people for the job, not because you're politicians, not because you need a job, not because you want the job and you're the most popular, but because your heart is actually in it, and you actually have a vision, and you can see what needs to be done as far as partnering with everybody and the actual issues.
That's what's so important, and I use Jerry Watson quite a bit. Jerry and Don Gates used to work together when Jerry used to be with the superintendent, was the deputy superintendent of schools over here, when Don was the superintendent of schools over there. Jerry used to go over and have lunch with Don, helped him when he was growing as a superintendent. Don's the guy that never forgets the guys that helped him.
Sure.
And so Jerry and I will go over and see Don. He just saw him last week in Tallahassee, and Jerry and I will go over and see Don later in the session. Jerry is very helpful with Lumen. Lumen May working really closely with us, because Lumen understands if the beach does well and generates tax revenue, that's revenue that can spend in his district. Stephen Berry definitely understands that. He works really close with David Peden. But those guys understand that the tide is going to raise all the boats, not just what goes on the beach, but it's going to be so helpful to what goes on at Perdita Key, what goes on in the city of Pensacola, in Lumen's district, what goes on in the north end of the county, in Stephen Berry's district, and all over. So it's very helpful that we all work together and we all have the same vision of helping Escambia County in Northwest Florida.
I agree. So I want to start, I want to go backwards a little bit.
Go wherever you want to go.
Start at the beginning. So can you tell me about the history of the Santa Rosa Island Authority? How did it all begin?
So the state legislature basically formed the Santa Rosa Island Authority back in the 1940s, late 1947.
47.
Yeah,
that's the year my parents were born.
Is that right? Well, it's kind of funny because I always talk to Monsignor Luke Hunt, who's right there. He's the priest out on the beach. I think he's 82 or 83 years old. But he
remembers that.
he always fun to joke with, because I told him one time I was surfing down in Puerto Rico. I said, Luke, I went to the fort down there in San Juan, and they got a picture of them saying mass here on Pensacola Beach. It's a hand sketch thing. And he goes, yeah, Mike, I know. I was there for the mass in 1559. So he spent around a couple days.
Yeah.
So
he was here when Tristan DeLuna landed.
Yes, exactly. He was there with DeLuna. So it's always nice. But he's got a good sense of humor, and he's another one that's always had a good heart for Pensacola Beach. All the pastors out on the beach, whether it be Nathan Pooley at the upper room, and just on and on and on. Father John over there at Our Lady. All those pastors that are connected on the beach, and they understand and build a sense of community. And that's what Pensacola Beach has been since the very beginning. Like I said, 1947. We just celebrated, I think, 70 years of the Pensacola Beach Women's Club. 70 years, the oldest civics group on Pensacola Beach. And it's just so nice to see all those ladies that come out.
My great-grandmother started the Women's Club in Madison County, Florida.
Oh, really?
My dad's family's from Madison.
Yeah.
Well, my great-grandfather was the mayor.
Okay.
And my great-grandmother started the Women's Club there.
Wow.
I don't know if it's still going on, but...
Well, the one at Pensacola Beach is strong, and it's just really nice to see all those ladies get together. They had their event this year at Sanders Beach down in city of Pensacola, and it was just a very well attended and great event. So out of the 40s, fast forward now, how many years later is that? Almost 75 years later.
So it was an act of legislature that
created Santa Rosa Island.
So obviously somebody had the idea it needs its own government entity out there on the beach to tackle these issues, and for budgeting and for everything that's going on out there.
It is interesting when you think about it. Jeremy Johnson, who is the current chairman of the board, his grandmother was one of the first people that was responsible with Grover Robinson, who was the former mayor here when his I think it was when his dad was in the legislature.
Okay.
She approached him about getting an elected member for the Santa Rosa Island Authority, for somebody who lived on the island was elected member. And that's how we got, and now...
I thought it was under Escambia County Commission.
It is under the Escambia County Commission. It was then, and it still is, in the sense that you have 6 members on the board, one that's elected that lives on the beach, and the other 5 are appointed by the 5 Escambia County commissioners. So each one gets an appointment.
I get that, but I guess growing up, I didn't know that the Santa Rosa Island Authority even existed.
Oh, really?
I thought that it was under Escambia County Commission. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I had heard of, maybe I heard about it, I just didn't pay attention. Of the Santa Rosa
It's a
Island
special
Authority.
district.
I thought that sometime back in the either 90s or early 2000s, it became I don't know why I thought that. Did
No,
something
it
big
actually
happen back then?
it actually became that back in the 40s.
Yeah.
And it's very similar when you see special districts. The special districts that people understand today are the Walt Disney World Special District, Reedy
Right.
Creek. You know, that's
Yeah.
the one that gets all the notoriety nowadays. But yes, the Escambia County, or excuse me, Santa Rosa Island Authority is a special district similar to that particular district. The county provides certain functions for us. We collect the lease fees on the islands because it's not fee simple. People have 99-year leases on their islands that renew at the end of those 99-year lease, so that's perpetual. We have
So
different
their
ones.
posterity and their inheritors
Right.
receive.
And then there is a difference on our commercial leases. Those leases are a little different. Those are usually 30-year leases, maybe a little longer, and they perpetuate as well. But it's interesting in that. So each one of the leases are a little different. So it's not like it's all cookie cutter, and so you have to pay attention to those type of things. But that's where the Island Authority generates its revenue. Is from the lease fees.
And you
know.
have a treasurer that does the budgeting.
We have a finance gal, Vicki
Finance
Johnson.
gal.
She does the budget. She keeps us on task all the time, and we operate about a $12 million budget a year. And that's what's really interesting. Out of that $12 million budget, we've been able to put aside $1 million a year, so almost $10 million to go towards the beach nourishment project.
Okay.
So. That's why we're going to come to the county, we're going to come to the TDC, and we're going to ask them to, hey, be as frugal as we are. Help us out to do this. Because the money on the beach, when you put money into beach nourishment, not only does it bring tax revenue back to the beach, but it protects the infrastructure. So it protects your investment. So it's the best investment. We're going to turn sand into gold or sand into dollars.
It already is. People come here for the white sand.
That's what you're exactly right. I'm
white
glad you.
sandy beaches.
That's why they come here.
Yeah.
They come here for the beach. That's exactly
Is
right.
the sand a little bit different than it was when you were a kid?
Well,
it used to squeak.
It's a little different because
It's so like mixed up now. It used to be a little bit more compact.
Well, it's a
and
little
when you
more
would
compact?
walk through it, you could.
you would squeak. That's exactly right.
And
But I think it's changed over the years. Part of the reason it's
The
changed.
dunes got blown away.
Balloons got
but
by
go
storms.
ahead. Go ahead.
Well,
Why
and
did it
then
change?
beach nourishment does change the beach a little bit because the
You're bringing
texture of
in
the sand.
sand. You're
The
bringing in
sand comes
different
from offshore with mixed in
Wow.
with some shell, so that
Right,
changes
it's gonna change
the
it.
fineness of the sand. But it's still one of the prettiest beaches in the
Oh,
world.
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah,
I
it
think
always
we're
will
gonna.
be. It was more beautiful when I had those giant sand dunes before Hurricane Ivan.
Yeah.
My son was born 2 months before Hurricane Ivan,
Okay.
and I looked forward to taking him out there on those sand dunes that I grew up with. And then 2 months after he was born, they were gone.
Yeah.
And so he never got to see them.
Well,
But
show them some pictures, right?
yeah, I know, I have to. So, but we're going to take a commercial break. I want to ask you about the reclaimed water next,
Sure.
but we're going to take a commercial break. And the Thornton Review is on the air to provide public service awareness and intellectual infrastructure to our community. This show is made possible by Ida Gates, Godly Teas LLC, Alpha Fence Company, and our guest, Mike Burns, Executive Director of the Santa Rosa Island Authority. It's great to have you on. Thank you. So we will be back after this commercial break. There is no government-funded program that can guide a man's thoughts. Only God can do that. Company can install any type of fence. When you call and mention the Thornton Review, you'll receive a $100 discount on your fence. They also offer military discounts. Vinyl fence, wood fence, aluminum fence, chain link fence. If it has the word fence, Alpha Fence Company can do it. 850-586-8020. 850-586-8020. thank you for tuning in. We'll continue our discussion with Mike Burns, Executive Director of the San Rosa Island Authority. Thanks again for having on. I'm enjoying our discussion so far. There's just so much, because even if I have a list of questions, you give me so much to go off of and go down these rabbit holes.
So are you going to go down that rabbit hole about when we were offset? There was just a second ago talking about the Cantonment Cowboys and how you used to be a cheerleader for
I was a Cantonment Cowboys cheerleader, and we came in first at competition against the Gulf Breeze Dolphins.
Okay, that's right.
We could all do the splits, and we had a perfect routine, and we were gung ho and spirited, and boy, we nailed it.
Yeah,
it was so much fun.
I think Bubba Peters, who is the property appraiser, I think he still coaches ball up there at the Cantonment Ballpark.
It's been a while.
I was talking to him and Stephen Berry about that not too long ago.
Mm-hmm. So but that should be an application question or an interview question of anyone going on, to go on the San Rosa.
Name your mascots of your local sports teams.
It should also be a question for superintendent.
There you go. Well, Pensacola Beach Elementary School, home of the Sandpipers. Rachel Watts, who's the principal out there, does a great job on the beach with our school out there. Mm-hmm. We're proud of her and all she does with the kids out there on the beach.
Yeah, I've never heard anything negative about Pensacola.
What was so great is just the other day I was talking. There were 4 kids. One that Daniel Green, he just graduated, and he got a job with the county doing some stuff in environmental. Josh Thompson, he just got a job. He graduated from the beach school and then got Breeze in the University of Florida. He's got his master's degree, and now he's working for Spaceport out in Spaceport.
There's a lot of
all
people
these kids,
who grew up here in the Escambia County school system who have gone on to do great things. A lot of people.
Lauren Kent is just she just graduated. She's getting her master's degree. And it was just on and on and on and on. All these kids that have gone through the Escambia County School District. Yeah. And then on to University, local university, and University of Florida, and other schools. I'm not a big Gator, but anyway, they're playing well in the basketball tournament right now. But it's really good to see that. And like you were saying, Don Palmer, I think, who was number 2 at ECUA. He's another great guy, and I have to give a hats off to him and Bruce Woody and Jacob Curley. Jacob Curley was the project manager. We just did a reclamation or reclaiming water project out on Pensacola Beach, and Robert.
I've had Bruce Woody on the show explaining that.
Did you really?
Yeah. But it is a very good topic, as far as infrastructure and the workability and everything going on the beach, because that's very important.
You're right, and that was a big project. It started in November and it ended on March the 1st, and I made sure I called Bruce and I called Jacob. And the one guy I wanted to make sure I called was Mr. Chavers, Robert Chavers, because he started that project. And you know this, Pueschel. We had snow days, right? We lost like 9 days of work.
I was stranded in Washington, D.C.
Oh, you went up for the inauguration?
Because, but my son lives there now.
So you weren't stranded too bad.
Yeah.
But what was really good is Bruce finished that project right on time, and it was amazing.
That is a miracle.
I said Bruce. I meant Mr. Chavers, Robert Chavers, Chavers Construction, but Bruce as well, and Jacob as well. And just hats off to those guys for doing that. It was a major project. We had the parade on the beach the next day, and people, if that was the first, they would have never. And then we had the Sun Belt Conference coming in for the basketball tournament with 28 teams on the beach.
And you didn't miss a beat.
Didn't miss a beat.
It's because of your collaboration with these people, not these other government
entities. I think it really
entities.
was, and I really hats off to the people that live on the beach. They put up with it, and
they probably didn't even know what was going on.
They had to dive between the
no
barrels.
Problems, no issues whatsoever. Yeah.
Well, they were good. They're good souls. They put up with it, and they were very, very patient with the contractor, patient with the construction, and I was just really proud of the way that all these parties came together and worked together for the success of that project on the beach. Mm-hmm. It was good.
So can you explain the reclaimed water project?
So they have all these lines that they had to put in, and they went from right there at the pier parking lot, right next to sidelines on would have been the south side of the road. So they had to take that and replace all that piping, and they're coming all the way down to let's say we're Native Cafe and it used to be Geronimo's Spirits right there.
Is that on the south side or the Gulf side?
It's on, so that runs down the Gulf side of the road,
Okay.
the south side of the road, and then it comes across, cuts across the road to where the treatment plant is
Yeah.
in the back. So they had to work all that project.
So they went under the road.
They went under the road.
They
then
had to dig
cut
up the
across
road?
the road. They
Or
had to dig
they
up
dig
the.
under? Oh,
they
wow.
had to dig up the road. So one lane all the way down.
Yeah,
you know,
that's not fun.
No, it wasn't fun.
And then
so,
ba-bump when you're driving.
right, and so
I haven't been out there since had they fixed the road like back to where you can't even tell
March
now.
the 2nd, you couldn't
Wow.
even tell.
Good.
That's what I mean. They went from November to March 1st. They were done, and it looks
Awesome.
great.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just so proud of them for what a great job they did and getting that project accomplished. So it was really good.
Absolutely. So, what parking and infrastructure and roads? Wouldn't a parking garage be a great idea out there?
Parking garage could be a really great idea.
I've been saying that for years.
and I think what you're going to see in
Just
the
charge to park in it.
in the next few months, and I know Ashley Hoffberger, the county commissioner, she put together what a request for a bid, request for
Really?
production for. I think you probably call it a multi. And I don't want to put words in her mouth, but it may say a multi-use facility where it may be parking and shops as well. So it's not just a parking garage. It's a multi-purpose facility with parking and maybe retail as well, and create some type of maybe promenade right there in the Casino Beach parking lot. We're working on that. We've asked the legislatures for some funding for a traffic study at the same time, so we can look at the possibility of changing the traffic pattern a
Please
little
don't put any traffic circles in.
bit.
Is that part of the plan?
Well,
I'm kind of joking, but I'm not really a big fan
Well,
of
I
traffic
think
circles.
you got. I think it's if there was a traffic circle, that was part of the concept the first time.
Yeah.
But the spacing doesn't allow for it
Traffic
for where they wanted to
circles
put it.
are great if you're the only car on the road.
Well,
If
it's used a lot. It's becoming more and more popular. But the thing is, you have to know where to manage it. I think originally the traffic circle was looked at to replace where the light
light.
is, and there's not enough space.
They have them in
there.
Washington D.C. down Massachusetts
DuPont,
Avenue.
that's a big
Yeah.
famous.
And you have 4 lanes in it,
Right.
and then you're in the inside lane, but you've got to take the next exit. I've never been honked at so many times in my life as when I drive that traffic. So I think there's 3 traffic circles
Right.
from Bethesda to downtown DC, where
Sure.
I'm coming from, and first off, I don't know where I'm going because I'm
Well,
not from
you
there.
definitely have to have
So I
the
don't
right.
know which lane I have to be in, but then I've realized at the last minute I've got to be over there, so I'm cutting people off in the
Sure.
traffic circle. It'd be so much easier if there's a light and I could just turn.
You definitely have to have a good traffic engineer that knows how to do it, and hope that you have a lot of people that have patience, that are willing to work through the process. But the thing is, at least there's a vision and an idea to do things to move that issue forward.
Efficiently.
And vision is good. There's a lot of times where people sit there and we have challenges and opportunities on the beach. We don't have any problems on the beach. Challenges and opportunities.
I get it.
So anything that there's a little bit of challenge, that's an opportunity to make it better. And that's the way we look at things on the beach. And I think we have that same mentality with our board, with our residents, with our commercial leaseholders, with our county commissioners. So everybody's working together to make things better. And I think
guess
that's a good idea.
You have to look at capacity also, like how many people can actually be on Pensacola Beach,
Well, the
How many-
population can swell, and we see that. Let's just say, you have 50,000 people that are on the beach, but, on any given.
Traffic's backed up across, back
Right.
to the 3 Mile Bridge.
So that one weekend
They're
out of the
looking for
year,
parking
it
spots.
goes to about 250,000 people
Wow.
when we have the Blue Angels. But the other thing is that 3-day Blue Angel Air Show is a $30+ million economic boom
Right.
to the economy. And so what we need to do is the season has gotten longer. It keeps growing, which is good for
You've got the 4th of July,
it goes
Memorial
right,
Day,
4th
Labor
of July.
Day.
So you see right now we're just getting through spring break. Spring break is just going to be wrapping up the next couple of days, all the way through Easter. you have spring break, and then you come back.
Then it kind of slows down a little bit until the
Slows down.
mid-May.
Right,
when
and
school
then you
lets
see it
out.
pick up again with Memorial Day. We'll have some good events out there on the beach. Ben Martin is going to be putting on the Family Surf Fest on the pier. That's just, I don't even know how many years he's been doing it, but that'll be a great opportunity going on right there in the core. And then, of course, one of the things that we do as the Island Authority, we have our bands on the beach every Thursday starting in April, goes all the way through October. Every Thursday, free bands on the beach at the Casino Beach once a month from March until late in the fall. We have Cinemas in the Sand, which gives parents an opportunity to bring your kids out and see a movie on the beach. Luckily, even though we had that storm that came through a couple weeks ago on Friday, where we pushed our cinema from Thursday to Monday, so we had
Well, things
cinema on
happen. You
Monday.
have to reschedule.
You have to
every
be
once in a while,
flexible.
Yeah.
You have to be flexible. So we got a lot of things coming on because then we'll have 4th of July and fireworks, and following up that week is the Blue Angels, which is just great. We'll have a great time. Next thing you know, it'll be Labor Day, and we'll be running into Beach-A-Ween in October. So
Well, you've got the 4th of July and Blue Angels
Right.
are
Two major
two of the
events.
biggest events, I think, right?
Oh
4th of
yeah,
July
no
and-
doubt about it. The
Blue
Blue
Angels.
Angel Air Show on Pensacola Beach is probably the largest air show along the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we have
People come
crowds
from all over.
all over. And our guys that visit Pensacola do a great job. Darren and his crew over there, and Nicole, do a great job making sure that we tell people about what's going on in Pensacola. I mean, their mantra is the way to the beach, and we like that because they know, just like everybody else, that the beach is the economic engine for Escambia County. So they know we got to have people at the beach because that generates resources, and it generates a great way of life for the people that live on the beach year round.
How old is the Bob Sykes Bridge?
Couple days,
It's about 55 years old.
Yeah, they say that it's got a little bit left of life, a little life left in it. But I give Ashley Hopper credit. She's working, and our guy Wes Marino and the guys there at the county are working together. We talk and have talked to several different bridge manufacturers, so bridge builders about.
Is there any talk of widening it?
Well, I mean,
Making a
I
four-lane
know
out
just
there?
some of the ones that I've had conversations with. They've talked about a new bridge with bike lanes, very similar to the 3 Mile Bridge.
Yeah.
Very similar. Of course, not that distant.
Right.
The
But
the
that
thing
wide.
is, but it would be wider. And so the question is the footprint and whether or not you can build that
And then
bridge
the
on that.
infrastructure on the beach, because you don't want it to bottleneck to 2
Right,
lanes
right.
once you get to the beach. You'd have to widen all the roads on the beach as well.
Right. So I think
At
I'm-
least to the Casino Beach parking lot.
Correct. So I think I'm not going to take Ashley's thunder because
Okay.
she's going to have a nice announcement, I think, on April the 2nd. So you want to tune
I
into
didn't
that?
know that. I'm not trying to bring something
That's
up and
okay,
steal her
that's all
thunder
right.
either, but that's just stuff that's been in my mind for years, for decades.
Well, she's working on the gateway to the beach. And so I think in April, first week in April, she's going to be chatting about that. So that'll be good, and look forward to hearing more about that. So that's the good thing. We work together. And if you work together, you can get things done together. And everybody's goal is to make life better for all the people that live on the beach, as well as those that visit the beach, our community in town that comes to the beach, and then our tourists that come and enjoy the beach
Right.
every year.
You want the tourists to have a great experience.
experience.
And to, love Pensacola and to come back year after year.
Exactly. And so like I said, with the survey that the Haas Center did for us, 9.2, 9.3 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Not bad.
Everybody wants to come back to Pensacola Beach. And that's what you want them to have. You want them to have a great experience. So they come out. Now, I got to give my hats off to David Greenwood and the guys at Public Safety, our lifeguards. They provide such a safe environment for people to come in. Chip Simmons does a great job with his deputies,
Absolutely.
Lieutenant Barnes, and all the crew out there.
Yeah, they have a substation out there on the beach.
Oh, they do. And Lieutenant Barnes, Sergeant
important.
Scott, Sergeant Chase, they do a great job. Our fire department guys do a great job out there on the beach, keeping people safe. Same thing with our guys at Public Works. Kirk Troll and all his guys. They just do a
Public
wonderful
safety
job.
is number one.
Public
in
safety. You saw what happened a couple years ago. Maybe it was last year with Panama City Beach when they had all these drownings all within one week. And next thing you know, they're number one on Yahoo news international because they had that. Our guys keep the beach safe. Knock on wood.
They must have had the undertow.
They do.
What do they call it? Is it the undertow?
Riptides and the
yeah,
undertow.
riptides. Yeah.
So, but you.
I've been stuck in that before.
Oh yeah, it can be very.
But I'm from here, and I knew to just kind of float on my back and kind of go with it. Like I swam with
what you gotta
it,
do.
and I swam along the shore.
Parallel to the shore.
Yeah,
That's exactly
until I
right.
got out of it. But I was scared for a minute because it was pulling me out.
It's funny you say that.
And I don't like to be out deeper than what I can touch.
Yep.
I don't like that because I feel like there's something under me that I don't want and I can't see. But no, I knew exactly what to do. I've been told what to do, but when you're in the moment, when it's a fight or flight and you have adrenaline going, it's a life or death situation. I think I did pretty good.
It's okay to be fearful of the
beach.
water. You can't panic when you're in the water.
Right.
And that's what happens. And so one of the things we try and do is we try and educate people on the beach. Swim where the lifeguards are. Swim in the protected areas,
Yeah.
If you do feel the current taking it, let it take you out and then swim parallel to the beach, east or west, and then come on in. As a surfer, you know those kind of things. There's other things you might not know. So we have all
Because you
these...
can't swim against the current. There's no way.
No, you can't do it.
I've tried.
Won't happen.
And there's been like smaller currents that have tried to take me out that I have tried to, because I knew it wasn't.
You knew you were going to be okay.
Yeah.
But one of the things we do is we put all these cards and placards out at all of the hotels and the condos, and we
The
encourage
education
everybody that
placards,
gets their rentals to put those out so that people know that's what you do. But once again, David Greenwood and all his guys with the trucks going up and down the beach, those lifeguards are so well trained and do such a great job trying to make sure that our beach stays safe, and that's a good thing.
So I used to, growing up, we would have many staycations on the beach and stay at the hotels and
My
everything.
wife and I do the same thing.
Yeah. And we'd always turn it like to Blab or, a local TV show. And there would be like this educational infomercial on the beach and, what to do if you're caught in the ripped current and just other various things.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if they
it.
still do that,
We should do one. I want to do one.
Let's do one. I'll get Dave Greenwood to come down here from Public Safety, and I'm sure he'd be glad
to narrate
do
it,
He
and
would do a great job.
Then you have snippets of what I'm talking about, but it's a completely narrated thing. It was about an hour long or maybe 30 minutes, and it's just an educational, informational thing for tourists and locals staying on the beach. It's a really good idea to do that.
The local Rotary clubs have been very helpful to us as well. They put in these tubes up down the beach, and it was interesting with those tubes on the beach. They haven't. It helps prevent drownings on the beach, so that somebody can.
Tubes?
It's a tube that's like a lifeguard tool, so that you can throw it
out and they grab onto
it's a
it?
flotation device. Yes, indeed.
Cool.
But the first thing that you do before you do anything is you call 911,
Sure.
and then you go for the tube. So that's very important. So, and it tells them that. So that's very helpful. Once again, it gets to your point. You have to educate people what to do so that they don't panic.
Public safety is number
Public
one.
safety, so important.
Driving, crosswalks.
Oh, exactly, yeah. We're getting our crosswalk lights. They were on back order, but we're going to have those lights out on the beach to indicate if they're flashing, that means somebody's in the
Mandatory
crossway.
stop.
It's the law, okay? So stop, let the pedestrian cross, and then let's everybody enjoy their vacation.
Drivers have to stay vigilant, because you're
You're
driving down the road and you might not be expecting a crosswalk, and then you see all these
No
flashing lights.
texting and driving, right?
Absolutely.
But those are going to be,
Eyes on the road.
that's exactly, those will be in hopefully by the 1st of May, and so we'll have our lighted walkways all through the beach, so that'll keep and help public safety. Number one on the beach, public safety. Keep everybody safe, everybody has a good time that way. So,
Absolutely. So, are you the executive director for a certain amount of time?
I have a 3-year contract, so coming up on first year, and so hopefully they'll evaluate me and they'll keep me around.
Evaluate you and they'll decide whether or not
and
to.
then 2 more years after that. So yeah, it was a nice process, but it was a good process, and I think I really have a good support by the board. They believe in the staff and what the staff's trying to do on the beach, and we have a good sense of community by our residential leaseholders as well as our commercial leaseholders. We all work together to make the island a great piece for people to live as well for people to experience, and so that's been really good. And I enjoy it. You know, my dad used to always say, Michael, they're never going to pay you to go to the beach every day, and doggone it if they do. So
you are there, buddy. You've made it. You have arrived.
I have arrived. So it's really fun.
Well,
having a great time.
congratulations,
But thank you so much.
So, is there like a capacity, a limit on the capacity on the beach? Like as far as infrastructure, as far as housing and shops, parking garages, anything that y'all want to build, there has to be some sort of limit because you've got 8 miles.
Right.
You only have so much infrastructure. The roads are only so wide. You only have so much parking, and you only have so much sewage infrastructure and water infrastructure.
So there's density requirements on the beach, and so there's people that have already applied. Let's say, for example, Mr. Rinke, Robert Rinke, and Portofino. They can build 2 more towers on their property. That's already allocated, so that they can build that. Julie McCreen and Innisfree, he has, I think, 2 more pieces of property where he can build existing towers. Now, as far as residential is concerned, the residential, there's no more subdivisions to be built on the beach. So that part is built
so
out.
that vacant part between where the houses are and Portofino is going to, is that a park?
So once you cross Portofino, before you get to the national park, there's 2 pieces of property. One of those pieces of property belongs to Escambia County. The other piece of property belongs to the University of West Florida. But none of those properties can be developed to build houses on or anything like that.
Isn't there a vacant spot where all the giant sand dunes were on Pensacola Beach between the main part, between Casino Beach, a couple of miles down before Portofino?
So there's
on
no...
the sound side?
There may be, there's not really. There's some public land that's back on the water side, but there's nothing where you could build anything on either side of the beach, east or west. That part is capped off.
I think it's important to save parts of the beach where no development is able to.
So basically you have that. I don't see the University of West Florida and Martha Sanders coming in there and building anything really on their property anytime soon.
Is there anything right that because after her somebody might come in and
but I think it's limited as to their lease and to what they could do with it. Has to be educational purposes, so it's very limited on what they could do on that piece of property. And then once on the next set of property to them is the national park, so nobody can do that. So that's one of the things. To me, that's the best thing that Richard Nixon ever did, was he created the Gulf Island National Seashore, which Pensacola Beach.
Nixon did that?
Nixon
did that. I
actually
like Nixon.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite presidents.
That's his best thing that he ever did, was the Gulf Islands National Seashore.
Really?
Yeah, to me, Well, as
the
executive director of the Santa Rosa Island Authority, I give him hats off for doing that,
Gulf Islands National Seashore.
That's right.
And that's a good name for it, too.
It is. So it goes all the way from over in Okaloosa County, just off when you come off the bridge, and the Brooks Bridge. On the left-hand side, there's a part there on the intercoastal, and then it comes through. You see Etna Bar coming through, and then there's a section in Gulf Breeze, and then it goes along the Mississippi Gulf Coast as well. You see a section of it, so it's really great how it's been preserved, and it will be for generations to come. So I think it's great.
Well, I enjoyed talking with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And
my pleasure.
And the conversation is flowing, and you give me so much to go off on.
I'm glad. It's my pleasure to be here.
I appreciate it. I'd like to have you back in a year.
Okay.
Follow
Sounds
up.
good.
So, the Thornton Review is a civic engagement show with a purpose to spread awareness by interviewing local elected officials, candidates, and professional leaders. This is information you won't get anywhere else. You can watch the Thornton Review on our various outlets, our website, thethorntonreview.com. On Vimeo, please follow the Thornton Review. On YouTube, please subscribe to the Thornton Review at the Thornton Review 7810. Please like our Facebook page, the Thornton Review Show. On TV, WBQP channels 12.1 and 12.8, and WBQP on Roku and Fire Stick. Thank you for watching this episode of the Thornton Review. Bye-bye.